Thank you all for coming on time. Nice to have you with us today. We are going to be doing a session all about hand fabricated jewelry. So Tanja's actually put together a series of videos for you all. Are we on YouTube? Yes? Great. So Tanja's put together a series of videos for you all, and I don't know whether you can see me on YouTube. I don't see the camera moving this way.
Yes, it did.
Yes, okay, great. To talk about all of the different ways in which we can do things using hand fabrication, some of the challenges that go into working with your metals when you're making things one by one, and I think it's going to be a really interesting session. So many of you already here know Tanja. Tanja is the founder and dean of JDMIS. Tanja has been running these gem jamming sessions now for a while. We've now finished, this is the third week of gem jamming sessions that we're running.
13, I think.
Number 13. But Tanja has a tremendous amount of experience in the jewelry industry. She's got 40 years of experience as an award-winning jewelry designer, as a jewelry manufacturer, in the wholesale trade, in the retail trade, sort of in every facet of the jewelry industry. These gem jamming sessions are part of a regular occurrence that we have now, which is happening several times every week. We have sessions that have gemstone spotlights if you want to know more about specific gems. We have sessions that talk about jewelry designing and jewelry manufacturing, like the one we're doing today. And we also have sessions that are on sort of topical things like how to clean your jewelry, or should you buy a synthetic diamond, or other things like that. Hi, welcome. Before we get into the presentation itself, I wanted to take just a couple of minutes to let you know about the JDMIS. Some of you are here now for the 7th or 8th session, so you've seen this video many, many times. But those of you that are joining us for the first time or joining us from YouTube, I'd like to just let you know a little more about who we are here at JDMIS.
Since 2007, the Jewelry Design and Management International School has given thousands of people the confidence to create quality jewelry. Established in Singapore, in the heart of Southeast Asia, JDMIS has conducted courses for some of the world's most distinguished jewelry companies, as well as passionate amateurs and those ready for a career in the jewelry industry. Specializing in the jewelry arts, JDMIS provides exceptional education in jewelry design, fabrication, gemology, and business. The tools that students receive from JDMIS on their first day have traveled with many along the road of jewelry making success. Tanja Sadow, founder of the JDMIS, is an award-winning jewelry designer and renowned jewelry educator with over 30 years of experience training the jewelry industry. Tanja, with her team of expert jewelry artists and instructors, created the JDMIS curriculum to be comprehensive yet flexible. Small class sizes, personalized attention, and an unmatched support network ensure that each participant leaves with the knowledge, skill, and confidence to succeed in the jewelry industry. Designed for the jewelry trade, training at JDMIS is fast-paced and packed with useful practical information. But with a diverse range of participants, courses are also great fun. Learning at their own pace, participants study the latest information about gemstones and jewelry styles. They gain confidence using the best of traditional and contemporary techniques and learn how to apply each of these skills to their businesses. All JDMIS courses are completely modular and they can be taken individually. For each skill they learn, students receive a certificate and can combine these skills to receive a comprehensive diploma qualification. Graduates in more than 42 countries delight friends and relatives with their unique creations. Many graduates showcase their pieces online, and JDMIS's brightest stars operate their own successful retail jewelry businesses, designing and producing exquisite jewelry that enchants their customers. The possibilities are endless. What will you create?
Fantastic. So now we are going to talk a little bit about traditional manufacturing techniques, and I'm here today dressed in my typical metalsmithing outfit. Some of you who are doing metalsmithing with me know. So we're going to talk about mainly metalsmithing, but there are three very standard methods that go way back in time. We have hand fabrication, which is producing one piece at a time with the raw metals. We have lost wax casting, which starts out with a wax, and that's a very different style because of the design. The design that is more has more volume to it, has more shape to it. Sometimes very difficult to get a lot of volume and shape on a piece of flat metal, so we would work with lost wax casting. But over the years, lost wax casting has been something that really is used for mass production. So we find it today in many jewelry houses where they're producing 50, 100 pieces typically. And we have die striking, which is also mass production, but in hundreds of thousands of pieces. And that would be something like, for example, costume jewelry, or it can be the little bits and pieces that we incorporate into our jewelry, like the pins that hold the brooch, or the post that holds your earring in, or those little tiny things that we don't really want to make by hand because they're much cheaper made by machine. Today I can buy a $6 gold head, 4-prong head, $6. How long would that take me to make? It would take me a much longer time than $6 to make. So it's not worth it. There's lots of things that we use die striking for. Okay, now if we look at when these things started, well, hand fabrication goes all the way back to the earliest of times. And this is one of my favorite pieces here that was made by hand fabrication, because in those days they didn't have die striking. So that means that every little part here, this little cage, and every part was made by hand. Even this granulation where they were melting little tiny balls and then attaching the balls to the surface. And this is from 1800 to 1650 BCE. Amazing how early we started creating beautiful things like this. We also started fairly early with the lost wax casting. In fact, the very first lost wax casting was even done with cuttlefish bone. When you take a cuttlefish bone and you slice it open, it's very soft inside. You can carve out a section, and then you can bind it together with a wire, and you can pour the metal into it, and it will support the 1,300 degrees centigrade of metal, which is amazing. So basically the lost wax casting was done early on in the Bronze Age, and it was done with ceramic. They were taking clays and they were creating the mold in a wax which was soft, and then they were packing that wax into the clay, and then they were holding this on top of a fire, and all of the wax melted out, which is exactly why it's called lost wax, because the wax is removed. And then they would pour the molten metal into that little clay kind of thing, and they would, that little mold, and then they would break the clay, and you'd have your solid metal piece inside. And die striking came about much, much later in the 1700s. Now that's CE, of course, and how come so much later? Well, these machines were devised only when we had more and more people that wanted jewelry made. And initially, in these days, it wasn't everybody that would have beautiful jewelry. It was usually the royalty, it was usually special people. These were made, one-of-a-kind pieces were made for very special people. So it wasn't until about 1700s when people began to start making more money that they were able to enjoy jewelry and buy jewelry more, and therefore die striking came into its own. So when we create, we start out with metal sheets and wires, and that's the most typical. Now they can come in all kinds of different thicknesses, which is important, and then we can put designs or patterns on them, and then there's a lot of things that we can do with these sheets and these wires, and we're going to go through each and every one of these things. So other things we can do: hammering. So when we talk about hammering, what do we use hammering for? Well, first of all, to flatten the pieces. We use it to make them thinner. The more we hammer something, the more it spreads out. We can make it very thin. And we use hammering to texture. Now, a little bit later, when we finished with this particular talk, then if you'd like to come and see the metalsmithing room, you can see also how many interesting tools we have in there. I have a specialty hammer collection, and I have all kinds of other really fun stuff in there that you might like to see. So other than hammering, we have sawing and piercing that is done with metalsmithing. So when we saw something, sawing is confined to the outline of it. So I can saw this beautiful outline, or that outline, or this outline. Piercing is when we actually remove metal. So that would be this section here that was removed from this first layer. And if you look here, these little areas also could be pierced. So sawing and piercing are a very big part of metalsmithing for sure, and hand fabrication. And then we have soldering. Now soldering will connect, it will fuse things. Sometimes we fuse, sometimes we connect, it depends what we are doing. But soldering involves having something that melts at a lower temperature than the host metal, and we call it solder. And the actual word solder means to make as one. That's the Latin equivalent. And when we solder properly, what's happening is you are really bonding the parts together very securely, and no matter if you hammer it, no matter if you drop it, it doesn't break. And if something does come apart and you've soldered it, then the soldering didn't work, or you didn't do the soldering properly. So it's a very specific thing where we not just heat up the solder and hope the solder will melt and the solder will join stuff together. Not at all. You have to heat the two pieces of metal, and those two pieces of metal then will melt the solder, and the lot of them will literally fuse and bond together. And that's what makes it really strong. So soldering is used on a lot of projects, not every project, but a lot of projects, and it's something that we typically do. What else? Shaping, bending, forming. Now this could require lots of tools because, of course, your hands are great, but the metal is hard. So it's very important to have the right tool to get the right shape. And to that end, we have so many different tools for bending and shaping metals and wires. We also have filing to do. There's lots of filing, and so there are different types of files. There are different shapes of files. So when you are doing something that we saw earlier, which has all the little pierced pieces in it, those small pierced pieces, we use needle files, which are really small, to get into every nook and cranny and to smooth out the surface. Because when you saw something, the teeth of the saw blade make a very jagged edge on the metal. So this smooths it out on the edges, on the insides, everywhere. And polishing. Now this is something that takes a very long time. People don't realize when we say polishing, say, oh yes, polishing is just another part of the process. Okay, it's a very big part of the process if you want your jewelry to look good. In fact, the polishing, if you're going to do it really well, takes practically the same amount of time as making the piece. And that's what a lot of people don't know. And it's not just, oh, we polish it with one thing. No, in many cases we might pick 2, 3, or even 4 different types of polishing compounds. We will start with one that is more coarse, and then we will really polish that up and take every scratch out. And after that, we will wash it. We have to clean it. We have to get all the polish off. Now, that's what an ultrasonic is for. How many people were here for our talk on cleaning jewelry? I think some of you were here. Okay. So we were talking about an ultrasonic, and we said never put your finished jewelry in an ultrasonic because you can do a lot of damage if it has gems in it. The ultrasonic was invented when you polish with these kind of polishes that are very, very greasy. It was invented to get that grease off. And we always put it in the ultrasonic way before we put the stones in it. And that's what the ultrasonic is for. So anyway, we polish and wash, and then we might go up to another one and polish and wash, and we might go up to another one and polish and wash. It's a series, and the series removes every single scratch along the way. You can't go to the next one unless every scratch is removed from the one that you're currently using. So, last one, stone setting is another process that we have, and of course we embellish our gems later. Once we've polished everything up, the stone setting is the very, very last thing that we would do. And we can set all kinds of stones today. There are so many different methods of stone setting, which is really fun. But stone setting is a really very specialized topic, and it takes people years to actually become very good with all the different setting techniques that we have. So there are people that just literally specialize in setting. There's a lot of people that might do all of those things, but not this. So they'll finish everything. When it's finished, they take it to the guy who does the setting and let the guy who does it every day do the setting, because they're going to do a good job. Now, it's difficult to be good at all of these things, and you'd have to practice a lot to be good at all of these things. So we're going to have a quick jewelry making demonstration for you to see how we would make something via metalsmithing. And initially we would start with a concept, and that concept would be then drawn out accurately so that the jeweler or the person who's going to make it, the metalsmith, would actually know what they're going to make and how they're going to make it. So initially we could do a quick sketch, and once the sketch is shown to, say, the customer likes the sketch, the customer says, yes, I think I'd like that particular piece of jewelry to be made. The next step is to lay it all out properly for the manufacturer. And the manufacturer doesn't want a sketch. The manufacturer wants a top, side, and end view. He wants all of the details. He wants all of the measurements. So we look at top view first. Top view gives us length and width. And we just make sure that everything is put in the right place. We can even draw stones in there. We can see what sizes of stones we need to buy, etc. So all of that can be done with the top view. And when we draw, we have to also remember to put the settings in as well. So we have to know, as a designer, we have to know about the settings as well. So that's the top view. Now we come to the next view, which is the side view. Side view is always directly underneath the top view, and the side view gives us the heights. So now we know how high that ring is going to be. And then after the side view, we might also do an end view just to see what it looks like in end view, to make sure that there is nothing missing. And in order to do the end view, we need that 45-degree line, because each one of these designs has a relationship to the next, and we have to transfer information from both designs. So for example, here I'm transferring information from the top view. At the same time, I'm transferring all the heights from the side view. So that would be how we get started. And when the jeweler already has this, then the jeweler can start with making the ring. Now, here in Asia, a lot of people start from scratch. They actually melt down their metals. They actually make the metals. If they want 14 karat, if they want 18 karat, if they want 22 karat, they mix the alloys together. And when it's super hot, then they pour it into an ingot. And the ingot forms a nice little shape there, which can then be rolled through a rolling mill, and then it can be made into a piece of flat sheet. Right? Now, today we often buy our sheet ready made. It's a lot faster. So we plan the design onto the sheet. In fact, we saw out the little piece of design, and here you can see shaping that design in one of these shaping tools. And this is two pieces that were made the same, and then they have to be soldered together. So once they're soldered together with that little bit of solder, you can see how the solder melts, but the ring doesn't. Then when those two sides are done, we can fit it onto a mandrel. We call that a mandrel. It's a steel mandrel, nice solid mandrel. And then with a hammer, we can round off the back portion of that ring, and then of course solder the back of the ring. So you might have noticed that it wasn't very even. One side's a bit longer than the other. There's a lot of filing that goes in between all of these stages. So here we're putting the top of the ring on, soldering it on, and now we are removing the excess metal in order to make that nice little signet ring that was the initial design. And a lot of filing, lots and lots of filing in every kind of way. We've got sandpaper, we do sanding as well. We use rotary tools on this to make it nice and smooth, and we will end up with the shape that we need for the ring. Okay, now when it comes to polishing and finishing something, no matter whether you cast something or whether you are hand fabricating every single piece, it pretty much is the same. We start sanding, and sanding can be done with sandpaper, and sometimes we have these very cool little tools that have small sandpapers on. You can get into all the nooks and crannies with those. And after sanding and filing, then we have that polishing process, and that polishing process literally has to go through many, many stages. And you will see every time using a different brick of polish, and the different bricks of polish have different grits, and of course between each one we have to wash off the polish very, very carefully, because if we don't wash it off, then we go to the next grit, we will contaminate the wheel. And if we contaminate the wheel, then the wheel won't be much good for future polishing. So usually about 3 different types of polish could be enough. You can do it with the big machines if you have the big machines. Of course, if you don't have big machines, you have rotary tools, and rotary tools are also really good today because we have lots of different little attachments that we can use for our polishing. Now, that one shows some stones already in place, which you can polish after you've put the stones in. Mainly the polish that we use is not going to harm the gemstones. But at that point, we wouldn't actually put it in the ultrasonic. Now, this is also very interesting. This is a piece of string. And sometimes it's very hard to get into the little nooks and crannies. And I picked this ring because I wanted to show you how you could get into small nooks and crannies. Sometimes it's just too small to get a piece of sandpaper in there, or it's too small to get a file in. But with the string, you put your polish on the string, and then you rub it, and you see that the string will polish your piece very nicely. So, even we can use sticks, we can use just to get in with polish on a fine stick with some very fine cotton on it. Now, here is an example of the stone setting, because we're taking our signet ring again, and we had a little A shape that had some diamonds on it. And so we're going to create the stone setting on this piece. So many people don't know how laborious stone setting is, how tedious it is, and how difficult it is, because you're working with very small items. Most of the time, diamonds are very small, they're not huge size. So first we would have to drill a lot of holes into the metal. We would have to make seats for the gemstones to sit comfortably in the seats. Then we can put those little gems into the seats quite well and make sure that they're all sitting very level and nicely. And then we would take a graver, and with the graver we can raise little pieces of metal, we call them beads, and then those beads are going to be pushed onto the stone in at least 3 or 4 locations. And as they're pushed onto the stone, they're going to hold the stone in place. So there's no glue. People think, oh, we just glue them in. No, there's no glue on good quality jewelry. And once we've pushed them on, then those little tiny ones, they're a little bit rough. They can catch in clothing. So we take a little tool which rubs on top of the surface, and as it rubs on top of the surface, it smooths off each little bead. And then of course afterwards we will repolish it, because that also does sometimes scratch the metal that we're working on. So at the end we get a very beautiful, very shiny and very fantastic signet ring, and this is a simple, fairly simple piece of jewelry to make. Of course, if you're making something a lot more complicated, then a lot more time and a lot more effort will go into it. All right, now I want to show you one more example of setting, because that setting was very fast. And this is stone setting of many stones, and when we put many diamonds in here, what we see is we see what we call pavé setting. Pavé setting is when we cover the surface. It means the paved, like the pavements in France. It's a French word, pavé. So we want them to be very close. So first we have to mark off where each one is going to go. And then we have to start drilling the holes. Now each hole has to be drilled very slowly. This is sped up 10 times. So the holes are drilled slowly because otherwise you blunt your drill bit very fast, and then you have to go keep looking for more drill bits. But each hole will go straight through to the other end, and that's in preparation for making now the seats for the diamonds. So the seats are made with a ball burr. This is what we call a ball burr, and it kind of makes this little cup shape. And the hole is allowing, basically, as later it's allowing us to clean the backs of the stones. That's why we have all the little holes that go all the way through the metal. They are ajours, a little opening so we can clean. This took a long time to do. This actually took several hours just to drill the holes and to put the cups. Now, in order to do the pavé, we need to prepare the metal to raise beads. And to raise the beads, what we have to do is we have to cut in 3 directions. This direction, and this direction. And when we've cut it in 3 directions, you see all these little raised portions. It's actually very hard to photograph something that is very magnified. But you can see those little kind of things that are sticking up. Those are the beginnings of the beads that have to hold the stones in place. Every gemstone that is put on here is going to require 6 beads to hold it in. So then we take a graver and we go in between and we clean up the whole area. And as we clean up the area in between, then we have this, which looks so much nicer. And you can see lots of little beads, raised, little metal beads sticking up out of the metal. A lot of work. Again, this shows you in 2 minutes, but this takes many hours to just do this. Then each stone is placed into the hole. We have to make sure that it fits into the shape of the hole and the size of the hole really well, that it's flush with the surface. And so if that stone doesn't fit, we have to find the hole it fits in, and we have to have different sizes in order to be able to really fit everything perfectly into each little space. It needs to be pushed in with the back of the tweezer, and once it's pushed in, that's not actually set yet. That's just positioned. So in order to set the stones, then we have to push every one of those little tiny raised beads onto the stone. That's 6 little raised beads per stone, all those stones. And that's the last step, which we also saw on the other one, rounding every little bead. So a lot of work, a lot of work. People often buy this kind of style of jewelry, but a lot of people don't have any idea of how long it takes or the amount of effort that goes in. You notice the beginning of the very first slide, it said labor of love. Yeah, jewelry, good quality jewelry is a labor of love. It really is a labor of love. So a beautiful piece, and you know, when you look closely, you'll see all of those little beads are so beautifully done and holding the stones in perfectly. All right, so that is pavé. Now, I wanted to show you a bracelet made in copper. Now, this is one of the projects that we do in our metalsmithing program. It's quite fun to do. You have to anneal the metal to make it nice and soft, first of all. Then when it's nice and soft, you can literally form and shape and wrap it around something hard like a steel post. Then we are going to tape it all up with tape, and we're going to saw through so that we have an opening in each one of the little rings that we're making. Then we have to make sure to connect them together, and we solder them. So once they're soldered, they're really nice solid rings, and you can hammer them to a very, very round shape. And then we can put them into a rolling mill and we can flatten them and give them a nice flat kind of a surface. So there we have lots of nice flat rings. That gives me a nice surface on which to hammer, so I can have textures on the rings, and it could be a hammered texture, it could be even a texture done using stamps. Then we make some smaller rings. The small rings are done with a much finer wire. That wire is also going to be wrapped up in a piece of tape to hold it all together so that we can saw through it. And once we saw it, we bring those ends together and we have to put on our two big rings, and then we have to solder the small ring in between the two big rings. And that's how we do all of them. We solder them all together, we make a nice clasp, and then we finally, of course, have to go through the polishing and all the stages of polishing, 1, 2, and 3, cleaning in between each one. Now this one we don't usually clean it with an ultrasonic, we do it by hand. It's all done at the sink, and we have a beautiful, so it gives you the bending, the forming, the shaping, the filing, the soldering, the polishing, all of those things. The only thing that's missing here is the stone setting. So not all of them do have stone setting, but we do have other projects that have stone setting as well. So in conclusion, hand fabrication is really a lot of effort, and it's making one piece at a time. There's no mass production there. It's literally you finish one, you do another. If you wanted something mass produced, then you wouldn't choose this particular technique to do it. And you have to get the suitable designs for this technique, because if you've got shapes that you can just form a little bit or shape a little bit, then they're perfect. This would be perfect because you can see how all of those are coming from flat sheet, and even though they're not completely flat, they've got a little bit of shape to them. And these also are very fun kind of things that we can make. I've got a couple of others. This was done in class. One of the students made this one. You can see the stones that is beautifully set as well. And we can even do rings and set other stones into the rings. But the designs have to be suitable for this particular hand fabrication technique. If you've got things that are more sculptural, then definitely it would be a different technique from this. Now, what else? We need to have the metals, we need to have the sheet, the wires, etc. And these come in all shapes and sizes today, and we always highly recommend that you buy your sheets and wires ready in the thicknesses that you like. Sometimes it's good to have 2 or 3 different types so that you're ready for all kinds of designs that you plan to do. And anyway, these things are very easy to buy today ready-made. We don't usually melt metals and pour in the ingot, and then you need a rolling mill. With this, you don't need a rolling mill. You can get on with other things. Then the tools and equipment. Yes, a lot of tools and equipment are needed. Again, for our metalsmithing program, we are able to provide something that you can take it home and you can really get on with the projects that you are learning how to do. And we've got pretty much everything you need, from your saws to your hammers to holding devices, files, soldering bricks and torches, and polishing boxes with all kinds of bits and pieces in them. So it's very comprehensive, and it's everything you need to be able to already start making lots of different things. And gems. Well, it's good to have gems. Whichever gems you have, you might be able to start thinking about how you want to design and incorporate your gems into your designs, because you can do that. The knowledge, we need to have an understanding of how these things are done. And most importantly, knowledge is also safety. Because if you are going to work with fire, and if you are going to work with very sharp instruments and stuff like that, you need to be safe as you do it. So I would say knowledge and safety come together. And the 3 Ps. Does anyone know what the 3 Ps are? What are the 3 Ps? It's not the 4 Cs. It's the 3 Ps. All right. Practice. All right, that's the first one. Never believe that you can do something once and it's going to come out really well. Right? This is one of the biggest things that everybody says, oh, it's not perfect. You can't look at somebody doing it. You can't look at a YouTube thing. You can't look at somebody who's done it all their life and then expect it's going to come out the same, right? It's going to take you at least 6 times to do a good one. I wouldn't expect you to do a good one until you've done it 6 times, quite frankly. Another P, patience. Yes, patience when you fail. Learn from what you do when you fail. But you do have to have patience in doing this. We did say it's a labor of love. Yes, sometimes you have to do things over and over and over again. And lastly, perseverance. Don't give up. Never give up, because at the end, it's such a lovely thing to do. It's so fun. If you like tools, it's something you really enjoy. And if you just like doing stuff with your hands, it's also something that you'll get great satisfaction from. And you'll get the satisfaction when you practice and when you see really good results. But those results will come. Yeah. Fantastic. So, do we have any questions? Yes?
What are the type of gems that can withstand fire? Because I know that some gems can
Gems that you can what?
withstand high temperature.
Withstand high temperatures. Okay, synthetic gems. So if you had a synthetic ruby or a synthetic sapphire, most of the time there would be no problem with those to heat them up. But we never really submit our gemstones to any heat. When we solder, we don't solder with the thing in place. That's why we do the whole piece of jewelry first. We finish it, we polish it, even polishing can, it can make the metal very hot. And if you have a stone in there, natural stones are like all of us, very unique. Some of them can take a bit more heat, but some of them can't. And today, you've got to remember that a lot of gemstones are treated in some way, shape, or form. So if you're buying a very affordable gem, chances are it's been treated. And heat could remove the treatment or could do damage. So I really wouldn't highly advise ever doing anything that's going to heat up your stone. Right? And if you had to, because maybe you're not using this technique, maybe you're using another technique, like the new technology, like the new metals, where we put it in a kiln and we fire it in the kiln, then yes, we use synthetic gemstones for that. But people can give you lists, but you need to remember that every gem is unique. They might have a little something inside, and that something could expand, it could cause fractures, it could explode. So we really don't want to heat our gems at all. Yeah. Great, thank you for your question. Any other questions? Yes.
I know that soldering works for some type of the metal, for example, iron and copper, but for gold and silver, does it work the same way as solder? Or
It works exactly the same way. Now, we normally work with copper, we work with silver, and we start with copper because copper is cheaper. So we make all our mistakes on the copper, and we don't really care too much if we make mistakes on the copper. Then we graduate to silver, and silver's a little bit more expensive, but if you're looking at how it works, we actually use a silver solder on copper, which is very visible. And people always ask me, but why do we do that? Why don't we have copper solder? Because the copper solder you can buy, especially here in Asia today, has cadmium in it. And that cadmium, when you heat it up, it's carcinogenic. You have to be careful. Don't ever breathe it in because it's dangerous. So we don't want to use the copper solder. We're just going to use the silver solder because we're practicing with the copper anyway. Now, can we still make a nice piece in copper? Yes, and there are many other ways. If you didn't solder it, you could cold connect it. We have cold connections, we have rivets, we have all kinds of ways that we can connect parts together without having to solder as well. Then we would graduate after silver up to gold. Now, the gold, you see all these different metals have different temperatures. So your copper actually is kind of in between gold and silver. So we start with copper because you can actually heat it up and chances of you melting it would be unlikely. So we don't have too much problem when people are learning how to solder for the first time with copper. But if you go straight to silver, you've got to be much more careful because that's got a lower temperature. And then if you go to gold, then you have to have a special torch because the soldering of gold is a much, much higher temperature. So different temperatures will, mean that you might have to have different tools. But at the end of the day, the way we solder is pretty much the same. It's not that different. Yeah. Good. Does that answer your question? Yes? Okay. Fantastic. Any other questions?
Quick question. The
Yeah?
string that you showed for polishing.
Yes.
What kind of string is that?
You can use cotton string. Yeah. Buy a ball of cotton, and if it's thin, you can just really get it into, and usually we put 2 or 3 strands, and it gets right into the smallest little nooks and crannies. It's very, very good. Yeah, cotton works really well.
Do you coat it
Yeah.
with polish?
Sorry?
Do you coat the cotton with polish?
You do put the polish. You put the polish on the cotton. You rub it like you would put it on your buffing tools, or you just rub it on. Yeah. And it'll get completely black. Everything, when you polish, everything turns black. And that's not a bad thing. It's just a reaction. It means that it's working. And unfortunately, then you wouldn't know what color polish you used with it. So then we would have to have some kind of indicator to tell us what the polish was, because we can't put more than one polish on one set. Yeah. Great. Any other questions? No? Okay. Fantastic. Then thank you so much, everybody, for coming. And I'm going to let Alex complete tonight. But when we leave here, if you want to have a look at our metalsmithing room, and I'm more than happy to show you the metalsmithing. Thank you.
Great. So thank you everybody for joining us. This, as I mentioned before, is one of many short gem jamming sessions that we run at the school, and we run them several times a week. We have spotlights on individual gemstones. We have focuses on how jewelry is designed, how jewelry is manufactured, and you are welcome to join us again for the next one. Do you know what our next topic is?
Yes, it's colored stones.
Colored stones, color in colored stones,
Color
right?
in
How to
colored
evaluate color. Awesome. If you would like to know a little bit more in depth than just the short gem jamming sessions, we have some fantastic short courses that are really good for people that want to get to know more about these. We have a program in foundation metalwork, so metalsmithing, where you learn how to do the making, the rolling, the sewing, the piercing, the rolling, the joining, all of the things that Tanja was talking about. If you're maybe not such a hands-on person, then we also have some interesting programs in jewelry designing. And I put digital design here because it's kind of interesting, because this actually can be really useful for people that don't want all of the hard work, but they want to be able to take back the piece of metal and set their own gemstones. So you can learn how to work with the metals and do the polishing and the gemstone setting, but then you can use the 3D printing and the casting to have something made in metal, something sent to a casting company, then you bring back the piece, you set your own gemstone with the metalsmithing skills. So that's kind of a cool combo. And for anybody that's working with gemstones, our most popular course is Gem and Jewellery Trade Secrets, which tells you all about the gemstones, where they come from, what things to look for when you're making your purchases, etc. All of our courses are taught by talented, expert, and practicing instructors in exceptional facilities in a central location. We have small classes, ensuring that everybody has a hands-on experience. Typically, we have 6 to 8 people in a class. And most importantly, we've just launched all of our courses in a blended learning modality. And what does this mean? It means that part of the course is online and part of the course is in school. And that gives us the best of both worlds. Sometimes if you come in school and you weren't paying attention, then you've lost that piece of knowledge. You're never going to be able to go to know what it was. And you just kind of struggle to find your way through. In this case, by having all of the important things online, all of the techniques, all of the theory online, you have access to that before the class, you have access to that after the class has ended, and then you come into the classroom to actually start practicing and to ask questions and to be able to get all of the benefits of the hands-on elements. So we're pretty happy with this new modality. It's been working really well for us, and we're excited to have people join us for these new blended learning programs. So if you are interested in doing something with jewelry, maybe more than just out of interest, you may have a career interest, or you may be thinking, I want to do something by myself. I want to be an entrepreneur. And if you're interested in getting into the jewelry industry, we train a lot of jewelry companies. We have a lot of jewelry companies asking us, I want somebody for, I want somebody to work with me. I want somebody to make my pieces. I want somebody to design for my customers, all of those interesting things. And we also have a really good network of professionals at the Creative Jewelry Studio, the retail store that you walked through when you came in here, a place where you can start your own business, where you can meet other like-minded designers who are doing exciting things, and basically get started on your road to entrepreneurship with jewelry. So with that, I just wanted to highlight that if you are a Singaporean or permanent resident, you can make use of Skills Future grants. There are training grants that will cover 50 to 70% of the course fees. The other portion of the course fees, so the 30 to 50% of those course fees, can be covered by Skills Future credit if you're a Singaporean and you have the Skills Future credits to apply to this. And there's also a section where you might have tools and materials for your course fees. And if you join us for the gem jamming sessions, you can either scan this QR code, or we'll be sending out an email where you can pick this up in your email as well. This is basically just a voucher to help offset the tools and materials that are part of the course fees as well. Fantastic. So hopefully you've all gained a little bit more appreciation for the difficulty that goes into producing handmade pieces. And I think it would be fantastic to welcome you into the workshop next door to show you around, to let you see what it is that we do there. Tanja, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Fantastic. Good.